So let's do a quick like origin story of you in Latvia all the way up to maybe right before you joined La Pomme in 2011. Like, what do you like as a kid? What sports are you playing? Are you dreaming of becoming a pro cyclist?
As a kid, I was pretty active. Played all kinds of different sports. Picked up cycling when I was 15. Yeah, just after turning 15, which is fairly late for like pros, but because there's quite a few guys that start at the age of 8, which seems crazy to me. But I think actually having a different background in different sports has helped me in my career. And I'm definitely grateful that I have not only been riding my bike for my life. Um,
Let me
but
ask you
yeah,
real
as a
quick,
kid,
what other
yeah,
sports were you playing and which one do you think had the most positive effect on your cycling?
actually, I did judo for quite a long time, for 5 years. And that definitely helps in all kinds of ways, just being actually athletic and being, I think, um, yeah, able to roll when you crash, so to say. But I also played ice hockey for a while there, and that's definitely the sport I enjoyed the most, I think. But and I think actually it also helps with kind of understanding how the movement is, even though it's totally different sport. But in ice hockey or any team sports, any ball team sports or whatever, you really learn to read how the movements go and how the race develops. And I think that has helped me to just learn faster, to move around in the peloton and read the race a little bit better. Um, yeah,
That's
but
awesome.
then
I can't remember who was talking about other sports transitioning into whatever their main sport is, like really high level athletes. And I've always thought for myself, I played basketball and volleyball a lot, and court awareness, it just helps me understand where are other riders, not only on my team, but where are the hitters at. And just like you're saying, the things unfold, it's almost a little bit slower at times. And I really think that is part of basketball. You got to see your man, the ball, like, and there's a lot going on. That's interesting to hear you say that.
I mean, maybe it's all bull, but I feel like it's true.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So who got you into cycling when you were 15?
Actually, at the time, my sister was dating this guy that actually is still quite a good friend and still is quite involved in my cycling. And he took me to a mountain bike race um, just before I turned 15. And then after I turned 15, I actually joined a club and started racing both mountain bike and road.
That's awesome. And you obviously just fell more in love with road.
Uh, Not necessarily. I really enjoy mountain biking. I still, every off season, I mountain bike. I don't really touch my road bike much in November, December, except at training camps. But yeah, mountain biking is fun. I mean, it's just, I think there was a better path forwards in road cycling. I mean, I did mountain biking all the way up until, up until I turned pro, just because, I mean, yeah, maybe when I went to La Palma, I did it a little bit less because I was racing in France quite a lot. But yeah, that was a team I could get on, whereas there was no real mountain bike teams you can really jump into. And I think
Mhm.
that was kind of why it went in that direction instead of the
Yeah,
other.
makes sense. When you're doing November and December and you're getting off the bike, what are you doing to just stay fit and active? What do you like to do?
I'm
For people not
definitely
watching this, there was a big smirk that came out, so I'm really curious about that.
I definitely do all kinds of interesting things in the off season to stay fit. One year when I was when I had a collarbone surgery to get a better plate in because the plate that I had didn't move. I did quite a lot of roller skates. I did like 40K roller skating sessions
Okay.
a few times a week. A few years ago, 2019, I played ice hockey 2-3 times a week. Then a few years back, even further back, I was like, just because there was not enough snow, I was roller skiing a lot as well. That was fun. I do a lot of things in the off season, but I mean, instead of, sometimes I hike for 6 hours also, which is fun. But
That's on my agenda today. I'm looking at like rainy. I don't know the centigrade, but it's like 50, and I'm like, I don't think I'm biking in that today. I'm gonna go for a hike somewhere, and I've wanted to get to this one peak, but it's too far for a normal day. But now that there's no more racing, it's like, all right, today's the day to go die on the mountain walking.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it helps a lot, but like anything you can do off the bike helps quite a lot. But yeah, definitely, no matter which different thing I choose for that particular off season to like do more than the others, there's always the base of quite a lot of gym work, lifting weights, and definitely running as well, just for some good bone density. And having fun on the mountain bike.
Awesome. What type of lifting are you doing? Any type of program? Or are you just going in there and doing lifts that you like?
I've worked with different strength coaches here and there.
Okay.
I really enjoyed lately. Erin Carson works out of Boulder. Worked with her for quite a while, and she has a bunch of videos and accessible things you can do from far away as well. So I actually have been using those as well while not with her. And those movements I really like. It's a lot about stability. It's a lot about like getting the body moving, and just making sure that all the stability is there pretty much, and that you can actually do heavy lifts also afterwards.
That's cool. I'll have to look her up. And we've had a few strength coaches on, and one that coaches Ashton Lambie, the most recent one, he does a lot of lifting by RPE, which I was like, how does that even work? And the program, it was actually really interesting to hear him talk about it. I'm going to look her up and see. The gym is just one of those things for cyclists that I think most people know that it's important, but they don't necessarily know what to do. And then they're like, where do I start? And so I've just been trying to gather more information and give people more options and just talk about it. Cause I lifted and then I stopped. And then once I really got into it, I saw a massive benefit to it. So it's good to hear.
Erin works a lot with triathletes as well in Boulder, because I mean, Boulder in general is a triathlete stomping ground, and she is a triathlete, or was a triathlete, and she helps both cyclists and not just cyclists.
Cool. So kind of diving into some of the training stuff, really open-ended question. What do you think is the most important aspect of your training?
Oof. Yeah, I mean, I think consistency is the most important. Consistency really is.
It's good to hear. That's a very consistent answer from all of you men and women that come on here. It's just like, just keep doing it.
Yeah, I think especially in the beginning, for anyone that's starting, or anyone that's restarting or whatever, it's all about making sure you do it enough. Because I mean, I don't think there's a better solution than you'll get better as it goes, just because you do it more. That's pretty much it.
So then what do you think when you think of your training? How do you think about it in terms of volume and intensity?
Well, there's definitely periods where volume trumps intensity. I don't touch much into November, December, January.
Okay.
I don't do much intensity there, even though I guess mountain biking is not really leisurely pace either. So I guess structured intensity is more what I'm thinking.
Okay.
I don't really do that, and maybe late January is when it starts to come in. But up until then, it's just, yeah, more about being fit, being a human first, cyclist second.
Yeah.
That's always been kind of what I look at things. But yeah, I mean, you hit anywhere like 30-hour weeks, sometimes a little bit more. I don't really go crazy hour weeks, because I know that people that do also 40-hour weeks, but I feel like that's a bit unnecessary.
Is that gym and bike time, or is that just riding?
No, that's just bike time. Yeah.
Dang. Okay.
Yeah, people are, I mean, you can start counting all the hours you also, I don't know, walk to the store then if you're counting. But no, I'm talking just bike time.
That's a legit question though. People are like, I stretch for 15 minutes. What TSS do I put? I'm like, dude, come on, man.
Yeah. I think you just put minus TSS if you actually stretch and foam roll and stuff.
That's interesting.
But yeah, intensity definitely starts creeping in January, late January, and then really hitting proper intensity like March, when you're getting, well, also you obviously in February already you start hitting intensity with the racing, but training wise, intensity really ramp it up. Yeah, in March, April. But I don't necessarily cut back the hours too much.
Okay. So,
which I don't know if it is good or bad, but that's the way it is.
You ever read Road? That's a different topic. Do you, with intensity, so you're just like you had said, you start maybe racing in February, but really the like true bulk of intensity is coming in March and April. Is that just because it's a long season and you know that if you start it in January to prepare for things in February, you're just going to fizzle out? Or what's the thought? It's always tough. I know for amateurs, they're like, well, I'm racing, I need to be ready for it. And I mean, I struggle with it sometimes too. You don't want to go to the start line. You know, you can beat so-and-so, but like you just haven't been hitting it, but you know, you want to still be racing in August. What's the thought process there?
I mean, it's all about your goals. It's all about where you want to hit your stride. If you want to win races in February, March, and that's what you care about, then yeah, you need to do intensity in December, January. But if you're okay not being at your best in February, then of course you wait till the big races show up and then you're actually there performing.
It's good to hear that though, because it's very hard, I think, when an athlete is in the trees doing their workouts and they show up to that race and they know that they're waiting for like amateur nationals in June, and then they don't do super well in February, and they're like, what did I do all winter? It's like, dude, your goal is still down the road. Like, it's okay to come into form. And so to hear you mention that, I think it's a good reinforcement. Is there any small thing that has had a big impact on your training? Or maybe it's something that you've learned in your years of experience.
Well, I think what people forget about most is just the nutrition side of things. Not necessarily everyone, but that is definitely a big component, because you can try and go out for the hardest interval effort ride you want, but if you're not fueled enough, it's not going to be quality. And any ride, it's not going to be quality if you're not fueled well enough. And that kind of or you're not going to recover well enough if you don't eat enough post ride. So it's always, I think that's what people forget, that it's not just the training, that it's also the way you actually recover and fuel for the training, because that's where you actually will get the benefits out of the training you are doing.
Can you talk a little bit in more detail about what are you doing the day or maybe the night before a big training session where you know it's going to be super hard efforts? Do you believe in carb loading? If so, do you have how do you manage that? It's a big one for a lot of people.
I definitely don't carb load too much in training, but I also don't run on empty, so I don't need to carb load, because I mean in training that the hard efforts will never be that long that you will really not be able to consume both the dinner before plus breakfast plus on the bike, you'll not be able to consume enough to keep the glycogen levels up. So I think what I always do is have a actual good dinner the day before a hard effort session, and then good breakfast, and make sure that I fuel on the bike, and that's pretty much what does it.
Cool. Does that change for any races, or is that pretty standard protocol for a 1-day race?
Yeah, depending on the race, you definitely start fueling a little bit more out. I think, yeah, if we're talking about just this past weekend, Sunday, then I definitely started bumping up the intake of carbs a little bit earlier, let's say 2 days out. But also, I mean, not necessarily just eating like crazy, but yeah, just making sure that I have carbs with every meal, and they're high quality carbs, and it's not just peanuts, but it's a solid amount.
What do you consider high quality carbs? What are you going for?
I like starches. I like potatoes as always, but yeah, rice, oatmeal for breakfast maybe. Yeah, right.
That's cool.
I mean, I don't do pasta too much, but I do rice quite a lot.
Is that just personal preference? You just don't care for pasta that much?
I don't do well with gluten, so I avoid this for that particular reason.
So do you think it's then like, there's a lot of people that would be like, ask him how many grams of carbs he eats. So do you think it's safe to say for a second, just lean your diet towards carbs maybe the day before a bigger training day or race, and don't, like you said, you're not overeating and stuffing yourself so you go to bed feeling sick, but just always have carbs with every meal and maybe a few extra. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think that is. I don't really, there are definitely people that try and hit like, I don't know, whatever grams of carbs per kilo. But yeah, it's too big of a pain in the ass.
It is.
So
yeah.
So I think, I mean, if you listen to your body's going to tell you what you need. And if you didn't feel well enough for one time, you're going to know the next time. So
that's okay. That's because there's newer cyclists. I'm like, well, I don't know my body. Like, I've only been doing this for 2 years. Like, my body tells me to eat Cheetos. And so I think you nailed it there. Like, listen to your body. If it doesn't work out, like, take notes on that and change it for the next time. And it's this like experimenting and learning about yourself of what's going to work for you will give you the best quote unquote carb load. Would you agree with that?
I mean, it's very true. Like, and that's the thing, like, people are very individual, and what works for one, 2.2 grams or 5.7 grams or whatever is not going to work for another person. And you really have to be, cognizant about like just amounts. And if you don't want to carry a food scale around all the time in every single day of your life and every restaurant you go to, then I mean, that's the only way to do it.
Yeah. Have you ever felt like you trained too much, or maybe your training was off a little bit?
I definitely don't shy away from training. I've been trying to cut back on training actually, because every year I'm like, sorry. Every year I'm like, oh man, I hit more than 30,000 kilometers again. And then this year I was like, August, I got sick, I got married. And like, I only did like less than 2,000 kilometers. I mean, I think this year, finally, I'm going to be under. And again, at Worlds, I hit more than 30,000 kilometers. So it's not really going the way I wanted it to. But I have cut back a little bit on the kilometers and the hours, obviously. But there are times when I feel like I don't ease off before races. Enough to be actually doing well in the races. But then again, we go to the same scenario where you have to choose which races you want to do well at, because we do so many races a year that you can't actually taper for every single race. So you do come fatigued into races, and you do just tough it out and just suffer through. And it gives you a good boost on the back end there. So I am going to try next year actually to ease off more often before races, but still having the balance to actually not just taper for every single bike race.
So what will you do for a taper? When you say taper, what would that entail? Maybe what's your plan for next year if you'd be willing to share that? Like when do you want to take the time off? Because this is a tricky one for a lot of people to nail.
Yeah, but I think it's tricky because everyone is individual. Some
Yeah.
people, like we have some guys on the team that will ride like a 3-4 hour ride the day before the race and do efforts there. I definitely don't do this.
Okay.
But let's say for Worlds Roubaix, I was really cutting back on the intensity. Let's say the last hard ride I would do if Roubaix was on or Worlds was on Sunday. I think no, actually Tuesday was the last hard ride I did.
Okay.
And then Wednesday I just did endurance. Thursday off. Oh no, sorry, that is wrong. So Wednesday last hard session. Thursday just riding. Friday off. Saturday openers and Sunday race.
Cool. I think
And
that's
the
good.
last session of efforts, you also have to remember to listen. If you don't have to go all the way till you're like puking on the side of the road. That's not necessary. You've already done the work. If you feel like maybe you're still carrying a bit of fatigue, it's better to just ease off and cut back on an hour or whatever, and maybe not ride that much more the next day. You have to feel good. When you feel good, then you don't really need to train anymore. Then you're feeling good.
Yeah. It's interesting. I don't do much of tapering, and just because I blog and post videos and stuff, people will be like, dude, this is really interesting. You don't seem to rest a ton. I'm like, well, imagine yourself going to a race after a rest week. You feel like garbage. And there's an interesting paper. My coach that I just started working with this year is Tom Bell from the UK, and he pointed this out to me. It's actually from Nordic skiers, so it's not exactly the same as cycling, but it's called Road to Gold. If you Google it, it's super interesting. They were talking about how there's all these like theoretical best ways to taper, these 2-week tapers, all this stuff. And they're like, no one's actually ever really tested this though on like Olympic, national caliber killer athletes. And when they followed, I think it was either 11 or 30 athletes. So it's a small sample, but just like a unique look at this. And they like none of them really taper that much. They're doing exactly what you're saying. It was like some even increased training a little bit, and they just did it by feel. Yeah. And so it's interesting to hear you say that. I like that one too. Like Tuesday, hard effort. It keeps everything in the legs. I feel like if you rest too much, you just feel kind of crummy.
No, for sure. I would train like normal all the way up until the last block of training that you would do before a race, and just maybe cut back a little bit on the hours in the block and make sure the last day is not the hardest day. Mm-hmm. And then you just make sure that you recover 1 or 2 days and you're good to go.
And when you say block, meaning a week or 4?
3 days usually.
Okay.
Usually do 3 days. So
some people say a block of training is in like 4 weeks. Other people say a block is in like a week.
No.
Like,
yeah. Cool.
So let's talk about racing a little bit. What's, look back, you have incredible results, man. It's amazing to have someone like you on this podcast. I think everybody should just go back at like pro cycling stats or even Wikipedia. It's just like, whoa, dude, the experience that you have and the success you've had is incredible. I'm curious, what result are you most proud of?
There's definitely a few that stand out. But personally, I think the one that I'll remember the most is when I was still on a Conti team, Hincapie's team. Mm-hmm. And I won the stage in California. Mm-hmm. And got the leader's jersey. And I think the reason why it's that is just because it was like the little guys sticking it to the big guys.
Yeah.
And also because it was our biggest race of the year, and all the sponsors were there and all the team staff was there. And I think that's why, because obviously if you look at caliber wise races, there's maybe others you could argue that are bigger. But I think that one is the one that's the closest to heart, let's say.
That's awesome. Yeah, huge. That squad, I looked back at that 2015, right? I think that squad is a hit squad. You look at everybody on that list and it's just like, a lot of good riders, and it's like 8 just boss ass killers, man. It is awesome. How do you view, like, we're talking about wins, but you even got to wear a polka dot jersey at Tour de France. Like, does that stand out to you as like, holy cow, I can't believe that happened? Or if you didn't, you don't win it though. I mean, just wearing that jersey to amateur, we're like, holy cow, how do you feel about that? I mean, that's got to feel incredible too.
Yeah, for sure. It was cool. It was a cool week or so that I had
Yeah.
it. And yeah, I mean, if I had brought it to Paris, it would be a different story, but it's definitely something I'll remember. And just because of the buzz around the tour and how much, yeah, there's media coverage and how many people pay attention,
Yeah.
it's it's what makes it special. If in any other bike race, pretty much you wear a jersey of some kind for a day or two, then it doesn't really hit any alarm bells. But that one, yeah, you definitely felt the tension and felt that resonates not just in your normal circles, but also outside of them.
That's cool. So that's kind of looking backwards. Looking forwards, what do you think is your biggest goal race, if you're willing to put that out there?
I mean, I definitely always enjoy riding the classics, one-day races. I'm hoping actually next year to switch it up a little bit. I've been riding a lot of the Ardennes, but hopefully next year I actually get to do also mostly cobbles actually, because I've been enjoying them. I mean, I always did, but lately last year I did a few, this year I did Roubaix, obviously. So it was like, yeah, I kind of want to do that a bit more. And Roubaix actually was one of the goals that I wanted to actually do, because it was the last monument that I was missing. So doing Roubaix for the first time this year was definitely a good addition to start. So I think, I think I would like to do that again. But besides the classics, it doesn't really matter which one I would like to do well in. I enjoy all of them. I'm not one that says, oh, Roubaix is the end all be all, or Flanders is the end all be all. I feel like every single of one of those is pretty freaking cool, and they all have their beauty. But also every single time I line up for Worlds, it's always a big goal every year. Just hopefully a good course comes along, and then we can actually go for a nice result as well.
That's awesome. You're the first person that's actually finally said that. I'm like, how is everybody not saying world champion? Like, that's got to be. And I, granted, everybody doesn't want to come on this little podcast and be like, I want to be world champion and put that out there, but it's got to be a big, I mean, I can only imagine how special and incredible that feels. And wearing your country's jersey, and how does the vibe work when you're not with your normal teammates? And I mean, you obviously cross paths. It's a small pool of athletes. You keep in touch probably with people from your country, but you're not grinding it out with them day in and day out. How does that come together on Worlds? Is it easy breezy, or is it, if it's a nice guy, it's got to be different, right? It's a different feel.
It definitely is a different feel. But we are not a big country. We only have 4 riders on the start line. And I think for different countries, it's very different. Like if you have a standout leader, then I don't think anyone struggles to come together for that one goal. And obviously, it also depends on the coaches that are there and what the coaches decide and how the coaches actually approach it. So that's why sometimes we see Worlds teams that work great together and Worlds teams that pretty much are chasing each other down. So it is different. I mean, in our case, I actually do race with one of my teammates. We're on the same team, aka Trek Sigfredo, and that's 50% of the whole squad at Worlds. So it's not that uncommon. But I mean, Latvia is so small that every single person, and you race with them, and like the relationships are pretty tight, anyways, because we all grew up racing together.
Yeah.
So it's never really a problem to help out or get help.
Yeah, it's interesting when you look back at like your nationals list of like who was on the podium. It's like first, third, second, like everybody, like you guys are just all like getting after it. And there's like 5 of you over the past 15 years. Just, all right, who's winning this year? Let's go.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty
Yeah.
much.
So you kind of talked about the week before races in terms of nutrition, but is there any type of routine that you like to that you sort of find yourself falling into that just helps you feel ready? You mentioned like, hey, the training's already done. You just got to stay sharp and go execute now. Are there any little things that you're doing that make you feel good going into a big race?
I don't know. No, not really. I think going into any big race, I just am very excited to race again, and that's all I need, really.
Yeah, that's cool.
Someone gives me a number, I get a smile on my face. It's like, let's go.
It's like the Pavlovian response. Like once I start painting a bit number on my jersey, I'm like, oh yeah, okay, here we go. Let's do this thing. It's awesome. So we kind of talked about the nutrition. People always ask, I'm not a big tech guy, but everyone's always curious about equipment and make it a sponsor plug. You don't have to. What's kind of like anything unique about your setup and then, well, I'm bad at asking two questions at once. Anything unique about your setup right now?
Well, we are very fortunate on this team because Trek actually owns the team and they make sure we have it all. So yeah, we have always, I think not many teams anymore get to choose a different bike, but we have both always on available for us, the Madone and the Monda. So we always can choose depending on what the race is going to be like, what our job is going to be there. We can choose the bike that we want. And that's really, I think that doesn't happen often, but I really appreciate that. And I think that's really nice to have that in your back pocket. Or for Roubaix, you get another bike, the Damani, obviously. And yet again, it makes a big difference if you're riding that or an Amonda, for example.
Mm-hmm. For normal road race, what tire size are you using these days?
We ride 25s mostly.
Okay. Has that changed? I mean, I guess you 123s back in the day because now bigger, everyone's going huge now. It seems like.
Yeah, 23s were there for quite a while. I think maybe 21s were when I was still a junior, maybe even younger than 21s were floating around. But
yeah,
I mean, even the ones that say 25, sometimes they're like 26, 27. They measure 26, 27.
I was doing an adventure ride up in Vermont and my buddy was like, you can't ride these 25s. He gave me quote unquote 30s. I measured them to 33. It was like it actually felt awesome to ride. I still have them on my road bike and descending is insane. You're just trying to go faster. So being a world tour athlete, you have to have a coach. Are you super involved in your own training? Do you just like to follow what a coach prescribes for you? How does that relationship work best for you?
I am definitely one that likes to understand what I'm doing, why I'm doing, and to have also input and express what I feel that I need. So yeah, I always chat with my coach and we always talk on what are going to be the go-tos this week or what's the next goal, what is going to be like the training, how did you feel in the previous race, like what did you feel like you were missing, or obviously I was missing. So I definitely, I think I would be sort of capable of coaching myself, but then I would train too much. So I always need someone to just keep me in check.
Totally. That's why I have a coach, or else I'd ride all damn day and just overdo it. And I've done that to myself. It's kind of fun to do. So is that the biggest guide? Is that the sort of the most North Star for your coach to help you out is what were you missing? Like, and that's how you decide what you need to work on, as opposed to maybe being event specific, or do you know how he steers that ship, or her, if it's a woman?
We definitely focus on more so like, what am I missing? But in regards to what's coming up.
Okay.
Like, obviously, if I feel like I'm missing punch, but we're about to approach the Tour de France, we're not going to search for that punch because the Tour, you're still going to be logging in huge mountains and you don't really need the punch. So, it's kind of a mix, I guess.
Okay. No, that's cool. What's anything about cycling that really intrigues you right now that's maybe like changing, and whether it's in the pro peloton or just changing in cycling that you're kind of like, man, that's wild.
Hmm. I don't know. I think I think the biggest development that I want to see what will happen in the end is how long it'll take us to switch to tubeless
So
fully.
tell me more about that, because everybody loves that I still ride tubes for everything, and they're like, dude, you're so far behind the times. And I'm like, to me, changing a flat when I flat, it's very, knock on wood, rare. It's easy. I've used tubeless. It's a mess. I don't have my own mechanic, and I'm like, why am I doing this? So you like tubeless?
I do like tubeless. Yeah, I ride them in training and in racing occasionally, not always. We still use a lot of tubeless, but yeah, we're experimenting a bunch. We're always like trying out new things, trying out new compounds for the tires, trying out different widths of the tires, obviously as well. And yeah, just trying to find one fastest, second safest. But I think right now with the tubeless, the biggest thing is just making sure that if you puncture, if you just hit a huge pothole and you lose everything from your tire, that you just don't find yourself on the ground face down. And I don't want to see how that develops. I mean, I love tubeless. I'll keep riding them. I see why people don't, but at the same time, for me, it doesn't feel like it's a big mess. Yeah, if you puncture and you actually have to deal with a huge amount of liquid still inside, then yeah, you get dirty, but I can deal with that. I don't puncture that often as well.
Cool. What do you think is the best piece of advice, maybe thinking back to 2011 or maybe even 10 before you become pro? Best piece of advice for those younger athletes that are like on the brink trying to make a living being a pro cyclist. What piece of advice would you give them, and has that changed at all? I mean, it's probably a little bit different now than when you got into the game.
I think it is definitely different now. I feel like it's quite harder now, just because when I turned pro, I barely had a power meter. Whereas now it seems like already juniors have power meters, and I kind of don't like that because people forget to listen to their body. But then again, sometimes you see guys doing crazy power numbers or whatever and just get signed on their, I don't know, Strava files, which also seems insane. But I think the one advice I would have is just remember to actually be human first, athlete second. Because even if you are super good and suddenly you get a contract, it might be a short contract if you're being a douche.
Well said, Toms. Well said.
And I mean, also, if you want to have a long career, you actually need to be like a proper human where you can lift, I don't know, a backpack and not throw your back out, because if you only ride, sooner or later you're going to start having little injuries, and then they're going to blow up. And I think if you take care of your body besides just cycling, then you're going to be in a good spot, and you'll actually be able to ride and enjoy riding for a long time.
So that actually makes me think of when we're talking about strength training. Do you do strength training more just to be a strong human as opposed to like cycling specific strength workouts?
I do both.
Okay.
I definitely do both. I think November, December is more just good human, and then it kind of switches to more specific workouts.
What would be the more specific ones for cycling that you like?
I enjoy quite a lot of one-legged lunges, squats, and whatnot. But at the same time, also some explosivity in there thrown in, be that with weights or without weights either.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, when I talk cycling specific, it's just more about the legs than anything else.
Cool. So you kind of answered the question a little bit, in this day and age, what do you think it takes to become a pro besides, you mentioned like, hey, you might just have crazy power. But a lot of other people are like, well, it's not just power. You got to like show that you can race. But there's like the social media aspect. How much does that play into being a pro? Like, how marketable is this person? What are the things that the non-pros don't know about being pro?
I don't think social media will get you a pro contract.
Okay.
I think, yeah, it's definitely your ability to race.
Mm-hmm.
Some guys will do that with just their power and be zero in tactics, be zero in positioning, but they can ride around everyone when it's single file and they just don't care.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's going to be guys that are more like me, where they don't hit crazy numbers and they just know how to race. They can read race and they can get results in that way. So I think it really is about, how well you can execute. Not really what gets you there, but that you actually get there.
Awesome. My last question for you. So this is kind of flipped, and me coming from the States, a lot of athletes, they might be able to get to the Conti level here, but then they just don't have the race resume or doing enough of the races to really get seen by people in Europe. You kind of, you were in France, then you came over and raced with Hincapie's team. And so I'm assuming still did races in Europe, but you're on an American team. Was that tough being away from home for so long? And then you're on this US team before you go to Cannondale Drapac in the World Tour. How was that kind of like, growing into this pro life and being on the road a lot, I'm assuming? What was that like for you?
Well, as a kid, I already started like being on the road quite a lot, because we used, like, Latvia gets freaking cold in the winter. So we used like school holidays to go for training camps pretty much.
Okay.
Like take the last week off and the first week off in between school holidays. So you get like 3 weeks away. And then, sometimes we would spend New Year's and Christmas not at home, even before we were 20. So I think just that already kind of taught me to, live on the road, let's say, live out of a suitcase.
Mm-hmm.
So, you sooner or later, you're going to have to be independent. So I think that the sooner you start, the better headway you get, and the less of a struggle it'll be when you come to Europe and have to spend a month and maybe finally cook for yourself for the first time or do laundry for the first time,
Yeah.
So it's easy to, especially when you are at home, it's easy to have people around you that can actually help you.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you mess up, they can say, oh, well, this is actually how you do it. So I think just learning life skills at home is already a good step forward.
That's awesome. So I guess I lied. My last question would be, so you're 30 right now?
Yeah.
Yeah. So where do you see this all going? Do you have like what you want to be doing in 5 years? You still racing? Are you taking it year by year? How's that unfolding?
I actually would love to retire in LA Olympics.
Okay.
But that's still 7 years down the road. So we'll see. It's a long ways. If I make it if I have another 2-year contract, I'll be actually already now. I'm very happy with my career. I would have never imagined being pro was never a dream of mine. I didn't really follow cycling when I was a kid. The first time I started following cycling, some races when I was probably 18. I didn't know that it was actually something you could have as a lifestyle or whatever. I did it for fun. I still do it just for fun, actually.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty happy with how far this has gotten me and where in my life I am. So if it were to end tomorrow, that's fine with me. But if I can choose, I would ride all the way to LA and retire there.
Would you retire in LA or are you going back to Latvia?
I wouldn't live in LA.
Where do you want to live after? You want to go back home or just travel around? And
well, my wife is from the US, so we're gonna live in the States.
Cool. Hey man.
Well, as long as they let me in.
Okay. I think you're married, so don't you automatically get in?
I don't know. They always find a way. Yeah.
Dude, thank you for doing this. This was awesome. Really appreciate you pulling the curtain back, and we wish you the best of luck. People will be rooting for you, and hope you have a great rest of the year.
Thanks.
Thanks, man.
Appreciate
Take
it.
care.
Bye.
Yeah.